Today, there was a proposal passed that will determine the future of Terra Luna Classic, and we need to discuss what happened and what the future changes are going to look like. Right off the bat, this proposal lowers the tax rate from our 1.2% down to 0.2%, so a massive drop, 1/6 the value that we currently have, and also sets aside 10% of that revenue to fund the infrastructure and contributors of the ecosystem. The proposal starts by highlighting the first major problem, and that is that the demand for Terra Luna Classic on-chain has dropped by 90% since the 1.2% tax was first implemented. Now, since that 1.2% tax has gone into effect, there's been roughly an 18-day average of 20 billion Terra Luna Classic traded on chain every day. Now, this might sound like a lot, but when we compare that to before the 1.2% tax went into effect, the change is dramatic. We originally had almost 200 billion Terra Luna Classic traded every single day before the 1.2% tax. So people made it very clear that they don't want to pay a 1.2% tax to trade their Terra Luna Classic on chain. They also highlight something critical that most people don't know, including myself originally before I was told about this. So for example, if you wanted to interact with the DApp, the Luna Punks NFT marketplace, the user will be taxed to place a bid and then again to withdraw the bid. And so regardless of whether the bid was filled or not, they would end up paying essentially a double tax or 2.4%. Now let's say you end up putting up a bid, the price goes up a little bit, so you're going to adjust your bid up. So you're going to pay a tax placing the bid, you're going to pay a tax removing the bid, then you're going to pay another tax placing the new bid at the higher price, which is just insane to pay that much tax. And that doesn't even guarantee you the NFT. So you just lost 3.6% of whatever you're willing to pay, and you don't even necessarily have the NFT at the end of the day. You might be wondering, how does a 0.2% burn stack up against a 1.2% burn? What is the difference going to be in token price in the future as well as tokens burned? Well, let's start talking about that. The Holy Grail that most people usually reference is 1 billion Terra Luna Classic, $1 billion of Terra Luna Classic. So we're going to take that volume number and use that as our stable benchmark here, $1 billion of Terra Luna Classic. And with that $1 billion of daily volume, after 2 years, you'd be hitting a price just over 2 cents, and we'd be burning 98.86% of the total supply, which is a massive amount. But what happens when we change this to 0.2%? With only 0.2% burn, we're only going to burn 52% of the total supply in 2 years, which is still a massive amount. But because of how the compounding works, that means that our price is only going to go up by 100%, and we're going to hit just under 3 zeros and then 6. So we're not really going up that much. We're basically doubling our price from here, but we're not going the insane numbers to over 2 cents. We would simply still be removed 2 decimal places from making that happen, which is definitely a major impact. Now, there's one critical thing to understand for what I just showed you. I showed you with $1 billion of daily volume. The reality right now is we're nowhere near $1 billion of daily volume. Right now, our volume is so dramatically low that it's actually insane. I'm going to show you that guys that in a second here. But before I do that, it's important to understand that the goal here is essentially our volume right now is really low with 1.2%. If we could get more than a 6x volume gain, we'd essentially net out to potentially a benefit. And so we need to have our volume go up by a magnitude of 6 times as much compared to what we have right now. That's where the second part of this proposal comes in. They're trying to levy a 0.02%, then set that aside for the building of the ecosystem. Let's dive into what these numbers actually are going to look like. So if we hop over here, we can see daily Terra Luna Classic, 20 billion, as we mentioned earlier, equates to roughly $5.7 million. Now that means daily would be funding roughly 4 million Terra Luna Classic, or just over $1,000 a day that'd be set aside for funding for the ecosystem, which is roughly 34,000 every month. So now if we can make this 6x, we could see our daily volume go up to 120 billion Terra Luna Classic a day, or roughly $34 million, which again is far cry from the $1 billion of daily volume we hope to hit. However, just for the purpose of funding on the ecosystem, this is going to be a massive change than what we're seeing right now. This is bringing us to roughly 24 million Terra Luna Classic a day that's set aside, or just under $7,000 for development, which equates to $200,000 every month for development being on the Terra Luna Classic ecosystem. And for anyone who doesn't know right now, the Terra Rebels are trying to put together about $60,000 every single month of funding so they can continue to develop the infrastructure that we need so utilities can come onto the ecosystem. So with that $60,000, if we hop back to the spreadsheet, Terra Rebels 60,000 need. In the current situation, we're $25,000, almost $26,000 short of that. However, in our ideal situation, we could have this Terra Rebels need of $60,000 be met and still have $140,000 left over for other companies and other developers to come in and build utilities on the ecosystem as well, or even speed up the infrastructure speed. Now, this proposal has passed and should be implemented in the next couple of days, and I'm really excited to see what does that do to this Terra Station numbers as far as the Terra Luna Classic transaction volume. As we can see on 14 days here, you can see the average, we're definitely on the lower end, even lower than when that proposal started. We're hitting an average probably closer to 15 billion Terra Luna Classic, so less than that 20 billion. We can make that average jump to over 100 billion Terra Luna Classic on-chain volume. That would be insane. And so I know that this has been a painful month for Terra Luna Classic holders. I'm right there with you guys. But hopefully this proposal will start pushing us forward to make some needed changes so we can actually see some major success. And we don't fall victim to some of the 3 catastrophic failures that could take out Terra Luna Classic. If you guys want to see those 3 catastrophic issues for Terra Luna Classic, check out this video up here.